Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. Now, what are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. You see, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save time in the second half of the show to take live questions, but we don't always have time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in. So when we don't, I gather up those unused questions and we address them properly here in a companion video. So let's not waste any time and get right to it. And we're going to start getting caught up with a question from 50 Shades of Geek, who writes, also, Mark Hamill is the best Joker in my opinion. I disagree with you saying that he's just the voice. If you watch the behind the scenes of him playing the character, you'll see that he really puts his entire body into his performance, not just his voice. I think voice actors have a much harder job because they don't have the benefit of conveying emotions through their face. All they have is their voice, so they have to put more effort into their voice performance. Speaking as a guy who's done both, side note, is it weird that I was thinking about Batman and Joker during my surgery, or is it perfectly natural that that's what's going through my head while I was being poked with needles? By the way, sorry if I misspelled anything, still under medication. Well, no problem. Listen, so this is a continuation of questions that 50 Shades sent and that we did get around to on the earlier show, where he was saying that he basically felt like Kevin Conroy is his favorite Batman, and he thinks that, you know, just doing voice is even harder than doing the face. And my basic principle of that is still unchanged, which is, while I love the voice and respect the work of voice, you guys who've watched me for any period of time, you know I'm always talking about voice actors. I think animated movies would be even better today if 90% of the time they didn't just go out and get famous names to come in and just do some voice acting, instead used actual trained voice actors. You guys know my position on that. That being said, what I said about Kevin Conroy earlier applies to Mark Hamill as well. And you know I adore Mark Hamill, which is doing the voice is only half of what a performance is. It's only half of it. What you convey with your body, face, movements, articulate. Look, I mentioned earlier, one of the best performances you're ever going to see of all time, male performances, is Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. One of the greatest male performances in cinematic history. And the entire first part of that movie, there's no dialogue. It's him acting with the physicality that he has at hand. That is at least minimum half the performance. I don't care what Mark Hamill's doing when the camera's not on him. It doesn't matter who's doing it in a voicing just to do his voice. That's not to say I don't love the animated character of Joker. That's not to say I don't love the animated character of Batman in that show. I do. But you can't put it on the same level of a performance when one of the actors just needs to go into a sound booth for a couple of days and just record lines, and another actor can't just do it with their voice. They have to do it with their face, their gestures, their movements, their body language. They have to emote physically. It's just way more. It's just way more. The voice acting part is a very specific, unique skill that I don't think gets enough recognition. But when we're talking about who's my favorite Batman, and I have a list of actors who have to bring both vocal performance and total physical performance at the same time, and are on set for months at a time and doing it and blah, 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 that's just a different level than, I believe, an actor who then just goes into a sound booth and only records the half, the voice. So I just don't see it anywhere near equal thing. Having to emote with your face and body adds to the difficulty of it. It does not take away from the difficulty of it. So, and I know a number of actors who have done both, who've done voice acting and big screen acting, and they all tell me the same thing. There's a lot more work that goes into having to do it full-fledged. So I love those characters. I madly respect the work of voice actors per se, but no, I just don't believe you can compare the two. I really don't believe you can compare the two. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. Okay, next up. Jesse writes, finally got out to see 1917 Good on Ya this weekend, and wow, a movie truly made for seeing on the big screen, possible. Might be my new number one this year. And listen, 1917 is brilliant. It's fabulous. Now look, my favorite film of the year remains Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit for me is my personal number one film of the year. But 1917 is up there. It's at my number 3 spot of the year. I believe 1917 is going to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And even as somebody who preferred Jojo Rabbit, I will have no complaints. because it's a brilliant film. I love it. And when it wins, I'll be cheering for it and I'll be really happy for it. And you're right, Jesse. It's one of those movies that's just so much better to see on the big screen. Absolutely right. Good Italian Kid writes, "Hey, John, have you ever seen Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful?" I believe somebody just asked me that. It's just a classic movie that, in my opinion, everybody should watch. You laugh with it, you cry with it. Haven't seen Jojo Rabbit yet, but I've heard it plays with similar emotions, and it does. But a Good Italian Kid, I'm going to assume you're relatively new to the YouTube channel, because most people know Life is Beautiful, the Roberto Benigni masterpiece, is one of my all-time favorite films. I've talked about it many, many times. It is my absolute one of my all-time favorite movies. It is a true masterpiece of cinema, taking one of the most tragic eras in history and bringing a story so touching and beautiful and funny in the midst of tragedy. It's just one of the most special films. What Roberto Benigni did in that movie is Herculean. It's absolutely Herculean. And, I won't go on about too much, because people who do watch my channel regularly, they've heard me speak about this film many, many, many times. And you're right. There are definitely thematic similarities between Jojo Rabbit and Life is Beautiful. Life is Beautiful is the better film to me. But there are some similarities there, and they're both just wonderful, wonderful movies. If you have not seen Jojo yet, get out, treat yourself, go see it. It's my number one film of the year so far. All right, thanks for sharing that in, Good Italian Kid. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, "Legend has it the Pacific Ocean was created by the tears of Niner fans." Yeah, well, those 49ers fans have a lot more rings than Kansas City Chiefs do, so don't you worry about the San Francisco 49ers. They'll be just fine. They'll be just fine. They'll console themselves with all their other Super Bowl rings, so everything's just fine. But what a great Super Bowl. What a fabulous game. Like I kept saying, I tweeted this out last night too. When it comes down, I got a Super Bowl and it comes down to the final possession of the game, you simply can't ask for anything more. You can't ask for anything more. It just doesn't get any better than that. I thought it was a fabulous game. I loved it. And congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs, man. All right, Casinema Reviews writes, "Instantly thought of Rob when Han showed up." Yeah, I mean, listen, I think everybody did. When Han shows up in the Fast 9 trailer, I'm pretty sure everybody who watches this show or has had any part of this show, instantly their minds went to Robert Meyer Burnett and how he must be reacting to the news. And yep, he was pretty damn happy. All right, Kenneth Colton writes, "I must admit, I would have not got tickets for Fast 9 if it was not for Han's return. Shout out to a member of our community, Amanda, you're amazing." So I think again, it's hard for me to say. My first reaction was, how can you possibly spoil that and put Han in this trailer? Like, it just would have been so much better if that was revealed in the movie. Now, but I say that acknowledging that if it turns out that his appearance in the film happens like in the first 20 minutes, and then he is a major, major character throughout the film, well, then you can't hide that in the trailers. At some point, that's got to be revealed. So when I see the movie, I may change my position on that, because right now I'm feeling like you shouldn't have spoiled it with trailers. But at the same time, if it happens really early and if he's a big major player in the movie, then you kind of had no choice. He's got to be in the trailers. But it definitely is getting people talking, that's for sure. Kenneth also writes, "I know it was a very short clip for WandaVision, but what I saw looked like hot trash. The only reason for me to watch is the Doctor Strange tie-in." I disagree. I think it looks weird and twisted and different. See, the funny thing here, Kenneth, is that some people, I think erroneously, will criticize the MCU saying, "Oh, the MCU is just the same. It's all the same." And it's really not. The MCU films, some of them are similar, but a lot of them are like done very, very differently from each other. But I just find it funny that they get criticized for doing things the same, and then they put out something that looks so bonkers and so wildly different, like that WandaVision spot. And they have been describing it like this ever since D23. They've been describing this WandaVision show like it's going to be kind of wild and out there and psychedelic and really twisty. And they show a spot for it, and now I'm hearing some people complaining, "No, that's just too different." It's like, I don't know. I got to tell you, Kenneth, look, it all strikes us in different ways. And maybe the show's terrible. Maybe the show will be terrible. But I got to tell you, that spot intrigued me. It was fresh. It was different. It was just a wild sort of slant on things. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do. And maybe it'll turn out to be terrible. But as far as the marketing goes, I think it worked. All right. Mandy Garcia writes, are 3-minute trailers too long? Fast and Furious 9 showed too much, in my opinion. No. I think you can have a 5-minute trailer, and that may not be too long. You can have a 1:30 trailer, and that could be too long. I mean, it all depends on what it is you're doing with the trailer. What stuff are you putting in the trailer? I don't think it's much like the discussion of, is 3 hours too long for a movie? Well, for some movies, yes, and for other movies, no. It really all depends. So I don't think a 3-minute trailer is too long. I mean, there used to be an era when there were movie trailers that were 8 minutes long. I'm not kidding, by the way. I'm not joking about that. Go back and look it up. But I don't think it is. It really all depends. And besides saying they showed too much, I don't know about that because I'm not really... Look, I saw this trailer and I'm still not even really clear on what the narrative of this movie is. I know Han shows back up. I know that a magnetic plane is going to catch a car in the midair, but really, I don't know too awful much beyond that besides the brother relationship. So I thought it was fine. I really did. I thought it was fine. But again, some trailers can be a minute long and give away way too much. Some trailers can be 3 minutes long and be perfectly satisfactory, like not give anything too much away. So it's not the runtime. It's the philosophy, I believe, that they take to do it. Anyway, Ryan Lohner writes, George Lucas is now the only one left from the filmmaking Avengers team that made Labyrinth, with the passing of Jim Henson, David Bowie, and Terry Jones. Not appreciated at all on release. It's been great to see its reputation grow so much. It's true. That is a movie that is today, like most of my fellow film fans that I know personally in real life, all love Labyrinth. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if I know anybody personally that doesn't love Labyrinth. And I'm not saying there aren't any, but I'm just saying I'm not sure I can think of any. I'm honestly not sure I can think of any. And here's the thing. You go back and watch Labyrinth, and you could totally see why there would have been people at the time when it came out that dismissed it pretty quickly. To be fair, you can see where it's coming from. And maybe it's just one of those movies that takes time. Obviously, I don't remember watching it originally when it came out, but maybe it's one of those films that just took time for the longevity of it and its multi-generational appeal to really start to become apparent. But it's a special little film, man. It's absolutely a special little film. I'm glad you pointed that out, Ryan. All right. Nate Dogg 101591 writes, next Fast and Furious will be a prequel to Pixar's Cars. Dom versus violent sentient vehicles in humanity's final stand. You know, I've heard other people, Nate, make a comparison like that. And basically what the idea is that Fast and the Furious, or Cars, is the dystopian future of Fast and the Furious, much like Planet of the Apes is the dystopian future of the world we live in now, right? So we don't know this, but somebody brought this up once about, think about Cars, okay? Cars is a horror movie. Because look at these cars, right? They all have seats in them. Lightning McQueen has a seat in him. Who's sitting in those seats? What that means is, even in that Cars universe, in that Cars world, there were human beings once. Human beings to sit in those seats in those cars, to hold those steering wheels that are in front of the seats. In that Cars universe, there were people. And now they're gone. Why? Because the machines rose up and slaughtered their human masters. And I wouldn't be surprised at all, Nate. I wouldn't be surprised at all if at some point, you know, we see Dom in Fast 10 getting a car that looks a lot suspiciously like Lightning McQueen and says, I named this car Lightning. And then we go, ooh, universal tie-in, crossover, shared cinematic universe. I wouldn't doubt it, Nate. I wouldn't doubt it. This is a good observation. All right, Owen Wright writes, One of my favorite movies of the year was surprisingly a film I haven't heard anyone bring up at all. Oh, The King. Yeah, we've talked about that on the show. I love this film due to many reasons, but that score was something else. Just wanted to know what you guys, if you guys have checked it out and what you thought. Yeah, now when I talked about the film originally, I was late to the party on it, but I thought it was great. I really did. I thought the performances were wonderful. I got to admit, I didn't quite notice the music per se very much, but that's me with a lot of movies. A lot of times I don't notice the music until I've seen it for a third or fourth time. To me, good music blends in with the scenery and accentuates what's going on with the narrative to the point where you almost don't notice it. Sometimes a good score is like good visual effects. You know it's doing its job if you don't really notice it. And then upon repeat viewings, you pick it up. Yeah, I enjoyed that film very, very much. I mean, it didn't make my top 10. It didn't make my honorable mentions. I don't even know that it's in my top 20, but it is one of those films in a very packed 2019 that I thought was a very solid film. So I'm glad you liked it too, Owen. All right, Kenneth Colton writes, Fast 9 copied the truck scene from Deadpool 2. Well, some people would say that Deadpool 2 copied the truck scene from The Dark Knight. I mean, so who's to say? Who's to say? Kenneth Colton also writes, Fast 9 copied the truck scene. I'm saying again. Now you're saying copy the scene from The Dark Knight and Deadpool 2. Had to remove my last comment, but they showed up. What's the removal point? Well, it was still there, so don't worry about it. I mean, but I don't know. I think it was just a good visual shot. Like, how many times? I couldn't even tell you right now. What was the first movie to do a scene where somebody, like some superpowered human being, stood in front of a truck as it hits them and the truck just slams to a complete stop, right? We've seen that happen a lot. It's not always a big semi kind of truck like it was in, or transport truck like it was in Dark Knight or Deadpool 2. But we've seen many scenes where like somebody would just stand there and lean into a truck and a truck would slam in. We've seen that multiple times. And I'm sure when Dark Knight did it, they took their influence from somebody else too. So, I mean, it's easy for us to go, this copied this, when really it might have been 15 other things before it too, right? All I know is that it looked pretty good. It looked pretty good. That's the key thing. All right. Tivshka Productions writes, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, dude. Spoilers. Okay, no, you didn't put any spoilers in there. Okay, spoilers with the ending credit scenes of Bad Boys 3. Do you believe they are moving towards a Fast and Furious tone, possibly bringing in young and famous talent to continue the bad franchise? Okay, for those of you who saw Bad Boys 3, you know the end credit scene. I did not interpret that end credit scene that way. I think it's still primarily these characters. I can't really go into what I think it ultimately means, but I still think it was pointing towards this, whatever the future is for this franchise, if they do a number 4. They say they're going to do a number 4, but we'll wait and see. I still think it's very much going to be focused around Will Smith and Lawrence. I think it's still going to be very much their thing. Now, they could be incorporating other elements, which is something I think the end credit scene is pointing towards. Again, I can't really go into in-depth without spoiling things, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I don't think that end credit scene had anything to do with the passing of the torch. I really don't. I don't think it had anything to do with that, to be honest with you. But that's just my interpretation. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. All right, Murray Reich writes, overall, it was a much better game than last year's. Yeah, true. I know some of my friends like last year's, but it was turnover after turnovers. I like this year's matchup better. I mean, I thought last year's game was great. I thought it was, let me rephrase. I thought last year's game was very, very good. I ultimately thought it was great because my team won. But it was a good game. I thought it was a very good game, solid defensive, game. I like that kind of football. But this game, I think, was a top 10 favorite Super Bowl for me. And my team wasn't even in it. So that says something. But yeah, I'm with you, Murray. I thought it was a really, really solid game. All right, Joker writes, Best sword fights of all time. We've been talking about that a little bit on the show lately. Best favorite sword fights. Number 3, Troy versus Achilles. That one's pretty good. In the movie Troy, Achilles versus Hector. Number 2, a rolling wheel fight, Pirates of the Caribbean 2. Well, that was okay. Number 1, Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal in Brokeback. You reeled me in on that one, Joker. You reeled me in. All right, Ben Burnside writes, I'm sorry, but if the live-action Mulan movie can apparently have a witch that turns into an eagle, then they can have a small, annoying dragon that has Eddie Murphy's voice. I disagree 1,000%. Just saying, oh, you have one thing that stretches the imagination, therefore you can do anything that stretches the imagination. I don't agree. I don't agree. Nor do I think, listen, Mushu, Eddie Murphy's dragon character in the animated thing worked great. I frankly, and I know this is going to be unpopular, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It would not have worked in live action. I do not believe that would have worked in live action. I think it would have given a different tone to the movie than what they wanted. Because I don't believe, listen, if you watch the trailers for Mulan, which I believe have been great, by the way. I think the trailers for Mulan have been wonderful. But if you watch those trailers and you can see the tone they have so meticulously and purposefully crafted, that tone gets destroyed if you put in a yuck, 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 talking magical dragon. I think it totally gets destroyed. It worked great. And I love the character in the animated film. And I'm not saying you need to agree with me. I'm sure there are many, many people who don't, and that's totally cool. I'm just expressing a different point of view. From my point of view, I think the tone they're going for in this live action adaptation looks fantastic. And it's not a tone that would have worked if you had a Eddie Murphy styled funny magical dragon in there too. It just would have undone the important texture of the movie they were trying to create. And so, no, I don't think having an evil sorceress in there disturbs that tone. But I think having a funny sidekick comic relief magic dragon, I think that does. And so right now, I feel like, nope, it was totally the right decision to take out that dragon. Now, I may see the movie and change my mind after I see the movie, but for now, I personally think it was the right call. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, and that's totally cool. That's just kind of my opinion on that right now. All right. Simple writes, I became a movie fan at the end of 2017, which is why I still need to watch a lot of the old classics. I'm currently trying to shrink my watch list. Oldest movie I've seen is 12. Ooh, but that's a good one. 12 Angry Men. And I love that movie. Next up, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Dude, make sure you've seen the other... Make sure you've seen Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers first. Make sure you've seen those first. I mean, Return of the King is masterful. You know, no film in history has ever won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. It's brilliant, but it's only made more brilliant by watching the first two first. By the way, the first two films, both of them nominated for Best Picture of the Academy Awards. They didn't win. They had to wait till Return of the King to win. But both of the first two Lord of the Rings films were both nominated. All three of the Lord of the Rings films were at least nominated for Best Picture. Return of the King actually won Best Picture. But dude, good on you. You got so many great films to look forward to. I'm actually a little bit envious and a little bit jealous. All right. Jay Master writes, John, did you see the final trailer for Mulan? It dropped yesterday. I did. After its big game spot, I'm really hyped for this movie. But my most anticipated movies are Raya and the Last Dragon and Eternals. And I'll tell you what, I'm still fascinated by Eternals, but I gotta wait to see something. But at D23, they showed us some big elongated scenes from Raya and the Last Dragon. And I said this coming out of D23, and people thought I was joking. I was not joking. More than anything I saw from the MCU, more than them talking about Star Wars, more than anything else, I wasn't hyped about as much as anything as I was as Raya and the Last Dragon. This, to me, looks wonderful. And the stuff they showed us from it was great. The director of the film was on stage and she was telling the story behind it, and it made me fascinated for it. I'm telling you, man, Raya and the Last Dragon is way up there for me too. Actually, I'm more excited about that than I am for the Eternals. That may change once I actually see a trailer for the Eternals. But for right now, Raya and the Last Dragon, that's my jam right now. And I cannot wait to see this movie, dude. I cannot wait. I'm glad you're excited about it too, Jay. All right. Mary Sadai writes, the Scarlet Witch Super Bowl teaser was great fun. Loved her wearing the cheap Halloween costume version of the classic comic book look. Callback to Samantha Stevens clicking into her flying suit with traditional conical witch's hat in Bewitched. Listen, and that was one of the cool things about it, Mary, was the fact that they went from these old classic television shows and they went to like an 80s style and vibe. You even saw that she was pregnant. They had twins. They had 2 kids, which is, of course, reflective, as in the comic books, Vision and Wanda do have a couple of kids. One is named Wiccan, and I still can't remember what the name of the other one was. Had the same problem on the John Campea Show earlier today. I remember that one was named Wiccan, and I couldn't remember the name of the other one. I still can't remember the name of the other one. But I thought that was one of the really cool things. And then not only were they jumping between TV shows and recognizable TV genres, but then also we see the reality Scarlet Witch standing there with the black and white Vision all at the same time. I have right now no idea how this show is going to go or where this show is going to go. All I know is that I'm pretty excited to see what the results are because I thought that was trippy in all the best ways. So we'll see how that works out. Thanks for sending that in, Mary. All right, John McKinney writes, South Park or King of the Hill? Oh, for me, that's easy, South Park. I was never a big King of the Hill fan. I tried watching it a few times. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying it never really appealed to me, not like the way South Park did. And South Park's a little hit and miss too, but I definitely prefer South Park. All right, Ben Rayner writes, what's sad is it's likely we're getting a better explanation about Han being back than we got with Palpatine and Rise of Skywalker. Yep. What I mean, look, no matter what they do, here's the equivalency. This is the equivalency of that. Imagine in Fast 9, Han shows back up and everybody's just like, oh, cool, you're here. Yep. Should we talk about why you're not dead or how we thought you were dead? Nah, let's just go race some cars. Okay, that is the equivalent of what Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker did with Return of Palpatines. Wow, the Emperor's here. Is anybody going to talk about how this is possible? Or why this happened? Is anybody going to talk about it? Nope. Imagine that. So try to imagine now, Fast 9, Han shows back up and nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. That would be the equivalent, and how ridiculous that would be. So you're absolutely right, Ben. You are absolutely right. All right, Suthius writes, Vin, Rock, and you, Tyrese, made up. The world is all right. Again, look, I don't know. The Tyrese thing just took on a life of its own. I'm not really sure why it did. But hey, you know, whatever. I don't like to feud with anybody. So that's cool. That's cool. No, listen, all I did was I saw this movie he was in and I legit thought it was pretty good. And so I simply reached out and said, you know what, man? Because he had asked for my number and I didn't give it to him. But when I saw the movie, I thought, you know what? He's pretty good. So hey, listen, if I'm going to criticize, I got to give props when they're due. And I thought props were due. And so I reached out to him. I said, you know what? Dude, I saw Black and Blue, and you know what? It's a pretty good movie, man. It's pretty good. And he was very nice. He wrote back and just said he appreciated that and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it's all good. It's all good. I hope Fast 9 is terrific. I hope Fast 9 is terrific. And I hope Morbius is terrific. Even more excited for Morbius. I really hope Morbius is terrific. All right, Big Dog writes, Top 10 celebrity crushes. Here we go. Melissa Benoist. I can't remember who she is. Is she Supergirl? I think that's Supergirl. Anyway. Karen Gillian, of course. Alicia Vikander. Brie Larson. Catherine Langford. Oh, which one's Catherine Langford? Who is Catherine Langford again? Hold a second. Now I got to look it up. Catherine Langford. Okay. Catherine Langford, an Australian actress. She starred as Hannah Baker in the first 2 seasons of the Netflix series 13 Reasons. Oh, okay. There we go. I wasn't thinking. And she's, of course, supporting roles in Simon and Knives Out, which I really liked her in Knives Out, too. Okay, so anyway. Miranda Cosgrove, Victoria Justice, Haley Steinfeld, Margot Robbie, number 1, Elle Fanning, plus a ton of honorable mentions. Yeah, I mean, like, my all-time celebrity crush list is actually pretty small. And they go in eras. Like my earliest celebrity crush was Courtney Cox. That was my earliest celebrity crush. Courtney, she was my very first celebrity crush, was Courtney Cox. I particularly fell in love with her when she was in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. But of course, we all remember her from Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren. She was my earliest celebrity crush. From there, my next celebrity crush was Cameron Diaz from being in The Mask. Super long time. My next celebrity crush after that is probably my biggest celebrity crush still to this day. It's Jennifer Garner, man. I mean, of course, Margot Robbie, and of course, yeah, absolutely. But like true celebrity crushes, I've only had 3 or 4 in my life. Jennifer Garner is like the current reigning queen for me of celebrity crushes. I just think that girl can do no wrong. But hey, that's just me. Thank you for sharing yours, big dog. All right, 50 Shades writes, hey, John. I'm not into sports, and my hair transplant was a huge success. So the guy that sent the tip in yesterday was a lying imposter. Thank you. No big deal. It doesn't really matter. No big deal, 50 Shades. But thank you for clearing that up anyway. All right, Brandon Nezamuddin writes, hi, John. Hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. I very much. Not only the Super Bowl, but the halftime show was awesome. I got my tickets for Birds of Prey opening weekend and noticed me and 2 others were the only ones in the theater. Checked a Thursday preview and there was only a few seats taken. Should Warner Brothers / WC be concerned about this? Not really. Look, Birds of Prey, they've always known this was never going to be a $100 million opening movie. I mean, they knew that. I mean, that's no big surprise to them. They never thought it would be. The question is, can it come in around 40 plus? Now, it's all anecdotal, but all I can say is Ann and I got our tickets for the Thursday night, the opening night, right? We got our tickets for the Thursday night. And we had to go all the way to the 10 p.m. screening to get seats. Because like the 7, 8, and 9 were like the 9 wasn't completely full, but there was only a couple of neck breaker seats left. That was it. So we had to go all the way to 10 p.m. to get 10 p.m. seats. That's not bad. That's not bad. And I'm sure there are probably some theaters that are even more packed than that. And I'm sure there are some theaters that are going to be more empty than yours. But the bottom line is, all that's telling us is that this isn't going to be a $110 million opening, which nobody ever thought this movie would be. At least of which the people at Warner Brothers. So if this thing can come in at 40 plus, I think they'll be okay. If they can come in at 40 plus, they'll be okay. The question is, can they come in at 40 plus? Don't know. Positive word of mouth would help, but they're not lifting the review embargo until the day before the movie comes out, which is just the most idiotic move. Seriously, Warner Brothers, what the hell, man? What are you doing? What are you doing? If you believe in this movie, and the social media stuff sounded pretty good. If you believe in this movie, why are you not letting the critics put their reviews out early? Like you did for Wonder Woman. You lifted the review embargo early for Wonder Woman because you knew you had a good movie on your hands. If you know you got a good movie on the hands, what the hell are you doing? Let the positive word of mouth get out there. But I don't know. Personally, I feel like they're botching. Their marketing on this. But let's see. If they can get to 40 plus, they'll be fine. So let's see how it goes. All right. John Campea's neighbor writes, John, why did you slash my... Oh, that's an Optimus Prime thing. Why did you slash my tires last week? That was me. And of course, we were joking last week about how, listen, man, I was so into Optimus Prime. If Optimus Prime told me to break law, said, John, go slash your neighbor's tires, I would have gone and slashed my neighbor's tires. That's just what I would have done, because it'd be, yes, Optimus Prime. Absolutely. So sorry about your tires. Abdullah Al-Ghatem writes, hey, John and Rob. Of course, Rob's not here right now. As a massive Star Wars fan, I am most intrigued in the time between Revenge of the Sith and the original Star Wars. My question for you guys is, what part of the Star Wars timeline are you most interested in exploring? Have a great day. Honestly, aside from the forward timeline, like what happens next, moving forward, which is always my number one answer. Other than that, Old Republic goes so far into the past that it has no bearing or effect on the current stuff we have. One of my biggest criticisms of Star Wars the last number of years has been we are just constantly hanging out in the same neighborhood. They have been shrinking the Star Wars universe more and more and more, because every time we enter into the Star Wars neighborhood, we keep bumping into people we know. And that's been my allegory, right? You know you live in a small town if every time you walk out your door, you're bumping into people you know. You know you're in a larger city if you go out and you can walk around for a half hour, an hour, or sometimes a day or more without ever bumping into somebody you know. And in the Star Wars neighborhood, every time we step one foot out the door, we're bumping into 15 characters we already know. And when you do that, the universe shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. So you either move forward or go so far into the past that it doesn't really have any consequences. So that's why, other than moving forward, the timeline I am most interested in is Old Republic. But we'll see where they go with it, because apparently, the reports are to be believed, the next movie is going to take place about 400 years before A New Hope, which isn't quite Old Republic, but it's still pretty far in the past. So I'm kind of okay with it. So we'll see how it all goes. All right, Willow writes, the cliche that annoys me is when the villain has the hero down, but instead of finishing them off, they taunt them, giving the hero the opportunity to either escape or be rescued. Yeah, that is an old motif. And there's one very closely associated with it that I've never understood. So when the heroes are in a big gun battle with a bunch of villains, particularly a bunch of henchmen, right? The heroes are just picking off the villains, like killing them left, right, and center. Bang, 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 bang. But as soon as the villains surround and capture, like they surround and pin down the hero, they don't kill them. They surround them and say, drop your weapon, giving the hero time to spin around and do something, or they just get captured and then break out later. The point is, in this gunfights to the death, the heroes never get killed. The villains never kill the heroes. They only do the polite thing, which is, oh, it wouldn't be fair for me to shoot the hero in the back. I should just yell, freeze, drop your weapon. No, the villain would have just shot the hero in the back and be done with it. But nope. In the midst of a big gunfight, the villainous henchmen always capture the hero by cornering them or pinning them, but they never finish them off. They just say, drop the weapon. So essentially, the hero always gets away because of the humanity of the villains, which I always kind of thought was weird. But anyway, that's one that's closely associated with yours, Will, that always drives me nuts as well. All right, next up, Wasim writes, hey, John, I would like to ask why you and most of the I would like to ask you why most of the TV actors don't succeed in the movie industry, either at the box office or in the awards season. And that's a large tip, Wasim. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level. This is a discussion and a topic that we have literally been talking about for 10 years. I mean, ever since I started movie blogging and punditry, this is a question that comes up all the time. It is a little bit easier today, but even just go back 6, 7, 8 years ago, it was and it still is a relatively rare thing when somebody who starts off as a TV star has been able to successfully transition to the movies. Somebody who starts off as a successful TV star being able to transition into the movies. You could name on just your 10 fingers a number of years ago the actors who were able to successfully do it. Michael J. Fox, George Clooney. You can make an argument for Will Smith, but he was primarily a music star first, but still, even if you want to throw in Will Smith. I mean, hell, you even take one of the most beloved and popular television shows in history, Friends. All of the cast members tried to break big into movies, and all of them failed. With the possible exception of Jennifer Aniston, but even her movie career didn't turn out to be that great. Really, overall, she's only really enjoyed a lot of success recently because she's gone back to television. So it was a very, very rare thing. The most dominant theory as to why this happens was I took a film program from Dove S.S. Simmons, and he addressed that question in this film course once. And what he said is probably the most, at least the argument that to me makes the most sense. And his argument was basically this. The psychology of it is when you see, I don't know, who is a big popular TV star? I don't know, Dirk Benedict playing Face. I mean, he was Starbuck in the original Battlestar Galactica, and then he was Face Man in A-Team. But Dove's argument was that when you're an audience member and you become accustomed that you get to see this actor every week for free on TV as one character. Remember, a lot of people think, oh, you know, Daniel Radcliffe, oh, all people can see him is as Harry Potter because he did Harry Potter. He did so many Harry Potters. But think about it. Dove S.S. Simmons would say, he was Harry Potter 9 times. You watch one season of a television show you like, you're seeing that person play that character 22 times in 1 year. And if the show goes on for 5 years, you've seen them over 100 times in the same role. So what he was proposing was that the combination of we get too accustomed to seeing that one actor in that one role, and we become accustomed to seeing them every week for free anyway. Thus, the idea of going to the movies to see them playing something that we don't recognize them as becomes a little bit of a challenge. Again, I don't know how valid that is, but it's the one argument I've heard made about that, about the difficulty of a television star to transition to the movie world successfully. It's the best argument I've heard to explain why. Again, I'm not sure that's exactly it, but that is the one that seems to make sense to me the most. So if you guys have other theories, I'd love to hear them. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. Where are we at here? Just got time for 2 more, and then we're going to call it a day. Let's see. Digamain writes, it seems like more actors nowadays are taking the leap from being in front of the camera to behind it, with interesting results from Jordan Peele's Get Out to Jonah Hill's mid-90s. What are your thoughts on the topic? Also, do you have any favorite actors/directors that come to mind? My favorite are Ron Howard, Ben Affleck, and Mel Gibson, to name a few. Thanks, John. Well, I don't know if it's happening more today than it did before, or if now in the internet age, we are just more aware of it and we talk about it more. Like, there's always been, you know, Rob Reiner and Clint Eastwood. And you know, there have been a lot of people who have started off in front of the camera and then they move behind the camera. I think we're just more aware of it now. But if you have to ask about my favorites, I think 2 of the ones, I have to mention 2 of the ones that you mentioned. Ben Affleck. I love his films. I love the films he directs. I was really wanting him to direct a Batman film, but alas, I will just wait for whatever new film he directs to come next. And of course, Mel Gibson. I mean, Gibson is just one of the best. I mean, think what you will of him personally. Mel Gibson is one of the best directors in the business. He's phenomenal as a director. He's absolutely phenomenal as a director. So those are 2 also, Digamain, that totally come to mind for me as well. So yeah, there you go. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion videos. We are now all caught up. There's still a few more questions you probably noticed, but those are all questions that came in after the show today was already wrapped up. So we will start with those questions that you saw still coming later. We will start with those questions on tomorrow's John Campea Show. Hey guys, listen, thanks a lot for watching this video, and a special thank you to all you guys who did send in those questions. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number 2, you supported the channel along the way, and all of us here associated with the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you very much for that, guys. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until tomorrow's John Campea Show, bye-bye.